Welcome, guys. We're here at the Vertical Art Gallery, located at 1016 Northwestern Avenue here in Chicago. The owner and curator, Patrick Hull, has welcomed us here. We are here for David Hu's solo exhibit called Presence. It is live from September 11th through October 2nd. So welcome to the show, Dave Hu.
What
This by the time this airs though,
it'll
no longer be
It's
available.
okay.
No, we're gonna push it. We're gonna push this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll get this
wow.
out. We'll get this out real quick.
Wow.
So, Dave, why don't you give us a little short introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. Do I look at this camera or the bigger one?
You don't even have to look at the cameras. You can look at me and
okay,
Andy.
Cool. Let's see. So my name is David Hu. I feel like I'm a visual artist. You know, that's what I do for a living. And then moved to Chicago about 2010. So I've been here for 11 years, originally from Georgia. And then, aside from that, I met y'all three years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you met me like
3
when I was
years.
starting.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
crazy part. Like I had just finished grad school.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Were you born in Georgia?
yeah, born and raised.
And how long were you there? What age did you leave?
Oh, as soon as I was done with high school. So
Oh, wow.
like after that summer, I moved here for undergrad.
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents immigrated at different times, met here, and then decided to have a family in Georgia.
Was Chicago always on the radar for you, or were there other cities?
There were other cities.
What was
Yeah.
like if you remember?
Let me think. So Chicago was always for sure on my map because at the time, like in high school, I thought I was gonna tattoo. Like that's what I was doing.
Oh, okay.
For my high school was cool in the sense that like your senior year, if you worked a job that was technically your field, you could do that for school. So it's called work exit. So my senior year, I apprenticed at a tattoo shop, and then I was like, this is my calling. And then Chicago has a really great tattoo community, and so I moved here wanting to do it, but then I'm not dumb, and so I was like, I guess I should do college, and so I went to art school. But yeah, Chicago was always on the radar. LA was always second, but I think it was just like daunting when I was like 18. And Chicago seemed like really, I don't know, nice, kind,
Yeah.
like a good starting city. And 11 years later, I'm still here.
What was the other city that was on the list?
Oh man, the usual. LA,
York.
New York, yeah. Things that would thrive for anything creative.
Yeah. I guess I want to just dive into that. So why not New York? Right? Like from an outsider perspective,
Yeah.
not in the field of art. I do feel like New York is kind of an epicenter for the art world. Is that
I think it's the epicenter for like anything creative, you
Right.
know, but for me, I just don't really believe that the mythology that to be successful, you have to be in New York because our generation has something so different for the first time, which is the internet.
Right.
You know, so like there's a lot of mobility in the sense that you can do you and then technology. I mean, it has a hand in doing the reach. And so I think the reason why I didn't do New York was because even at 18, it seemed like kind of a grind, right? Like I'd rather, having moved from like nowhere, Georgia, into something like a metropolis, Chicago is cool because like it's clean. Like no
It
one puts their
is
trash
very clean.
outside. And so, yeah, I mean like the possibility is still there, but I just feel like our generation doesn't have to prescribe to like that mythos that we have to like be centralized at a place like the epicenter of culture to be
Right.
good.
Is there not much of an art scene in ATL or Georgia?
In high school, not when I was there. It's probably a lot different now. I mean, I have not participated in like Atlanta's scene for a very long time, but growing up, it was always just, you know, like street art,
Yeah.
graffiti, and like all this stuff, which is fine. But the art isn't what turned me off being in Georgia. I think it was just like the lack of,
Diversity?
kind of, but it wasn't like race. It was just like what I wanted to do as an artist wasn't necessarily being fostered there at the time.
Maybe like a lack of culture.
Yeah, kind of. And it's not like saying they're backwoods people,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know, it's just like it
Kind
wasn't.
of are.
But it wasn't like up to my scene.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
just like, oh yeah, this seems way more. And I mean, plus I was a kid. I was like, the great city.
Yeah.
You know.
For sure. No, because I spent some time in the South. I live in Alabama, right? And Kentucky
Oh geez.
and Missouri.
Oh God.
Yeah. I'm not a Southern boy though.
Yeah.
Most of my life was spent here though in Chicago.
Yeah.
So, but my time down there, like, definitely faced a lot of racism, definitely faced a lot of
Yeah.
discrimination and.
Yeah, and I don't want this talk to necessarily gear into that so fast, but I mean, that's why the show is called Presence. Like, it took me a really long time to figure out what I wanted to make work about, and then once it hit it was a lot. Like, the show is called Presence because this word means itself, but it's also the opposite. So presence, as we know, means to be seen and heard and recognized in a space. At the same time, it means that you're seen but not recognized in the same place. And I'm like, that is like the perfect description of what it feels like to be Asian American, specifically Korean American in my case, Yeah. And so this work isn't necessarily about race, it's about, I think, how do I word this? I haven't really talked aloud yet. It's just, it's like my whole entire work in the show is about the experiences that I had and understanding that every interaction that I ever had with a human, it's already processed that they see me through the lens of being Asian American. So inherently in that, I think the act of it is political, but I'm not a political person. I think I just give a shit about living, right?
Yeah.
And then I think what was really hard was that, like I'm 29, and so I grew up in Ackworth, Georgia until I was 18. And so there's a lot of residual baggage I realized I never addressed until March this year. I was like scrolling through my phone, and then that mass shooting that happened where I grew up,
Right.
it like hit me in the face because I was like, damn, this is where I fucking grew up.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I like honestly left. Like I didn't want to deal with the racist baggage that I felt.
Yeah.
And that's why I moved to like a bigger, more multiracial place. But the joke is too, Chicago is so hyper segregated in itself that there's still like a lack of community.
Yeah.
Like where am I gonna go? Chinatown? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, no. And so I think just like I think that's what like kind of hit me the hardest because it showed me for the first time in my life in only 29 years that the U.S. seemingly understood that Asian Americans or AAPI were people of color.
Yeah.
So I think it's not that I'm trying to critique it or celebrate it or whatever. I simply just want to present it to be like, it's kind of strange. And so that's why the show is titled Presence, and all the works are just processing metaphorically, but also just like the things that had happened really in the last 18 months for me.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, I love that, man. Like, I feel like even at, and I think that's why like we connected even at Perilla.
Yeah, man.
It's just this idea that we are here, and we are present, but there is no
Presence.
presence.
It's weird, right? Yeah, and like I keep saying that because there's lack of a better word for it.
Yeah.
But what was really cool thinking about it when we were installing for the show was that like we really connected when I did the mirror at y'all's restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was really serendipitous because the timing of that, man, it was hard. Like every day, man, it was like old Asian person gets killed. Old Asian person gets stabbed in the face. And I'm like, damn, if I wasn't doing what I was doing in y'all's space and then talking with y'all about it. Like, so the mural was really great because it was kind of cathartic in a way. Like I had painted this massive thing during a month of, I want to say confusion and like grief.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It
and
was
like,
an interesting time.
it was a
to say
very
the
strange
least.
time.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like what we're talking about. It's like, oh, pay attention to me. You
No,
know,
yeah.
it's just like the stranger conversations that we haven't really crossed bridges yet to celebrate immigrants. You know what I'm saying? Like just really celebrate immigrants. And so if that's the case, that's why the U.S. doesn't have a lexicon to like celebrate children of immigrants. And that's what we are.
Right.
You know, so like I had met someone the other day who was third generation Korean American. And that like blew my mind.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. So y'all's parents were here.
Yeah.
And then their parents were here.
Yeah.
That's weird, right? Like that's a
Yeah.
foreign concept. Whereas like, like we're bilingual, we're bicultural. And so like, it's not that I have to pretend to be more Korean. It's just more so like, how do I come to terms being comfortable of like the middle point? Like, I don't want to be more American. Like, obviously, we're not white enough for this place. But when the three of us, I guarantee you go to Korea, we're not Korean enough for that place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not that I'm unhappy about it. It's just a strange thing to come to terms with.
Yeah.
So I think when I was making the work for this show, that was like one of the biggest thoughts that had lingered in my brain residually from like what this year was.
Yeah.
Like, dude, 2022 is in 3 months.
I know.
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just I want to mention, just because you touched on it right now, about this in between space, and I've always been appreciative of beautiful art.
Sick.
I've always loved like good photography. I just like I enjoy that. But the first time a piece of art really connected with me on another level was a piece that was done by James Jean. and it's called the Descendants. And so he conceived of this idea when he was on the top of the Lotte building in Seoul, Korea, when he had his gallery in South Korea. And it's about a boy that's falling through, seemingly off the top of the building, and then is floating in between these two spaces, right? Not American enough to be recognized as American, not, in his case, he's not.
I think he's Taiwanese.
He's
American.
Taiwanese.
Yeah.
And not to be accepted by Taiwan, and always lost in between these two. And this piece really connected with me on a deep level. And I actually, purchased one of those pins.
Oh, sick.
And when people, I remember when I first got it, I was working at a big restaurant chain, and all these white kids were like, "What is that? That's sick." And then I told them the story, and they're like, "Whoa!" They're like, "That's too heavy, man." And I'm like,
Is it though? I don't think so, man. I
that's
just feel
that's my life.
Yeah,
man.
and it sucks because like half the time when I meet, I mean that's a cool thing about this summer, man. Like we're all in the swing
Right.
of making friends again.
Yeah.
So I realized after 2020, I was like, man, I don't think I can do small talk anymore. Like if anything, that year taught us general compassion.
Right.
So my expectation is that everyone who came out of it and enjoying their summer, I mean, there should be the willingness to listen, to have like a bigger space in your body. So everyone's just like, are you on something? Or like, are you always so deep? And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I'm not talking about anything deep.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is always in the frontal cortex of my brain.
Right.
And I guarantee you a lot of people think it too. So like, why not just clear the air, lay all your cards on the table and let's go from here. Right? And so it's interesting for me to hear that the first piece is James Jean for you.
Right.
So this is interesting because he is a very successful Asian American artist.
Right.
Like, for sure, man. But he's not like our spokesperson or anything.
Right.
And it's strange because a lot of my friends who are also painters, like they say his work is illustrative, like illustration. And I'm like, what does that matter?
Yeah.
Like, why does it matter that we have highbrow and lowbrow? Like, this is such an outdated system perpetuated by certain people's taste. So, like, that's the stranger thing, I think, me specifically being an artist. Like, y'all are in the food world, but how you guys understand people, service, ingredients, all this shit is not very different than, like, how artists operate.
Yeah.
So I think one thing that I personally feel like that I never learned, and I'm not shit talking my school or anything. It's just that we never really had the understanding that what we are doing is for ourselves, but ideally meant to connect with others.
Yeah.
Food does that so simply.
Right.
Music does that really simply. So it's strange that one of the last like creative forefronts, the visual arts, is like still gate kept to a point like my brother can walk in a show with me and be like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
That's fucking weird. No one's gonna eat your food and be like, I don't know.
That's not true. People
I do, yeah.
people come in and they have an expectation of what the food should be.
Should be.
Yeah.
See, that's fucked up too. So
Yeah.
it's like, don't project, right?
Yeah,
Like,
Right.
exactly.
if you're like willing to be open-minded, dude, I guarantee you the level of your life will go up.
No, for sure.
You know?
But that's like, you can't convince
I
the
know.
masses.
I know. So it's like, I think these are like relatively, they're not new thoughts. I think it's just after the last 18 months, I've spent time learning how to articulate it.
Yeah.
You know, and I
Yeah,
think
for
that's
sure.
like the joy. Cause like once people leave their, I don't know, circle, like I love hanging out with my friends who paint. But if I just kept it incestuous, I would never have any other perspective about what's at stake
Yeah.
Right.
when it came to making.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really cool like cross pollination of
Yeah.
Mediums.
yeah, you know, and so it's cool because I never really anticipated that we would do this with like the work behind me.
Yeah.
You know.
This is great.
Well,
fucking
I
sick,
want to
man.
I want to shed a little context for people that are listening. So we connected with Dave years ago, and then what we were talking about earlier was that Dave was kind enough and generous enough to donate his time and his efforts and his talent. And if you come to our restaurant at Perilla Korean American Fair, on the back wall of the dining room is an absolutely like jaw-dropping,
Sexy.
sexy mural that he was painting. And at the time that he was painting it was a very, very interesting time in society. I mean, everything, man. Everything was happening.
Yeah.
And more so, the focus was really on the violence that was happening towards the PI community at the time. And I still reflect back now, it's going to be hard to ever forget
Yeah.
this moment, just because of everything that was happening, like the stresses we were dealing with in the restaurant industry, the violence that was happening and taking place in the streets.
Yeah.
And at the same time, this beautiful mural being put up, and there was like highs and lows, and like every day was just such a wild ride.
Yeah,
But that's kind of how I think we really started diving deeper into our conversations. And
Yeah.
one of the things we talked about was because I think me and Andy are so disconnected from the art world, shedding light on the people in place, in power, that dictate who out there should be recognized. And it's funny just because last night me and Andy were at the James Beard Awards.
Oh, yeah.
And that same kind of model exists
Yeah.
in every industry, I'm sure. There are, you know, and yesterday the entire message of the James Beard Awards and the foundation was that we're making change, that we're shedding light on people of color, we're looking at small independent businesses more. Like there's a clear, you know, direction that they want to change
Yeah.
as opposed to just white chef, white chef, white chef, white chef.
That's great, but I mean, like, that's some shit people should have been doing. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And it's not that I'm angry or anything. It's just kind of strange. Like, nobody asked me to be born Korean American.
Right.
Right. So, like, me being placed on this earth, it's like, it's really, really strange to unpack my memories to be like, dang, like, just because of how I look, and my last name in itself is confusingly Korean, right? Like, a lot of Korean
Right.
people don't even know my last name is Korean. So, like, coming to terms with, like, those interactions, it's just like, okay, there's no way that, like, the three of us or anybody in this room feels like that idea of, like, white narrative is the norm, right?
Right.
And then I think this is like everyone should be accustomed to it by now, but it's more so, okay, like, if we're being barraged by, like, the language and, like, the knowledge and, but I mean, like, dude, it's so cool that you can just scroll through your phone and someone has built an Instagram carousel slide of knowledge, and it just takes 5 minutes for you to read,
Yeah.
right? And so, like, we live in a time now where education and knowledge is, like, so available, right? So now we're at the point where we got to actually do shit about it, right? Like, put that into action. So, like, I'm not saying everyone should be an activist or anything. It's just that
Yeah.
I don't know how to word it. Like,
Just be conscientious.
yeah, just be conscientious. And for the first time, and, like, did you guys think that you would live through a plague? I didn't think that.
Yeah.
Like, for real, right?
Well, our business partner was wishing it at some point. I shit you not. He was like, dude, Thomas, one day, man, if we just lived through a plague or pandemic, like, and then it happened.
and then you're like, fuck you.
and we're like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
no, so, like, that's the thing. It's like, I do appreciate hearing that, but, like, how much of that transparency is, like, I don't know, like, virtue signaling, or, like,
Right.
you know, it's like, I do think it's good when, like, major figures like the James Beard Award people,
Yeah, are starting to.
yeah, vocally say it,
Yeah.
but it's also like, okay, cool, you now do the work then, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the point.
Is this something? I guess what I want to know is, like, is this something that's happening in the art world? Is it difficult for? Because, like, I mean, just what little I know, like, I know that talent is celebrated, right? I mean, and maybe I don't know the full picture, but, like, Jean-Michel Basquiat was, a black man in New York City, and he was widely celebrated.
Yeah.
But, you know, is that the only story? Is that, like, is
Yeah.
there many more
I
of
mean,
that?
there's a lot of systems, and I don't want this whole talk to be like shit talking the system kind of
Okay.
thing, but, like, in my opinion, man, so, like, we grew up in a time where if a business has malpractice, we
Yeah.
question it, we cancel it, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what this generation does.
Right.
That or the generation after me, right? Like Gen
Yeah.
Z. But the weird thing is the art world in the monolithic form, I'm talking about, like, when you see big ticket numbers, right? Like, there's something that needs to be really fixed. Like,
Interesting.
and, like, I could go on for hours, really, just, like, the injustices and also just kind of, like, the power dynamics of the art world. But, like, Basquiat's interesting because I think he was truly, like, the last, in my opinion, artist to artists, right? Like, he loved to make. This bitch made so much
Yeah.
in the very short time he was alive. But the sadder fact is when you really read that he was alone, like, to be a black man in New York in the 80s, celebrated by predominantly people who are white that owns these galleries.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I can't imagine what he would felt like being so celebrated, but physically alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the movie portrays it really well. Like
Oh,
they
interesting.
really do show how alone he was.
Yeah, and so that was like
in the height of his
yeah,
his
and that's
fame.
my worst fear, right? Like the more I realize, like, you know, my parents love me, right? They're like, "Oh, you're very talented." I'm like, "Thanks,"
Yeah.
and then
Not as much as us though.
yeah, thanks, man. But the weirder part is that it was so hard to convince my parents growing up that I could be an artist because
Right.
I can't point to a history book and be like, this guy did it. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying an Asian person. I'm saying like Asian American or children of immigrants, something that can comfort my parents that my lived experiences are worth making art about as long as I maintain compassion and honesty because my situation is not unique. So my parents are coming to see my show for the first time Saturday, and it'll be interesting because they haven't seen my work in a while. And it's not that my parents don't care about art. I just don't think they've ever had like a bone in their body to be like, this is something that's at stake for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
What-
they had an idea of what their children would be, right? When you
Probably.
were born.
Yeah, I mean, like
that's
my
how
parents are like,
are.
uber talented creative boy.
Yeah.
But I
You'll
mean,
be a doctor one day.
yeah, that's the shit. That's the shit. Yeah, yeah,
Very
yeah. They're
creative
like,
doctor.
and they're like, I was like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, you can be a plastic surgeon. That's kind of like art. I'm like, I don't want to cut people's
Oh,
faces all day,
man.
man. But
That's
it's because,
crazy,
it's
yeah.
because they equate those jobs to success,
Success.
financial stability, and I get it. But that's very much like immigrant mentality, if not someone who was
Yeah.
like raised in poverty, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think I try to understand their perspective,
Mm-hmm.
though. It's not so much maybe, you know, for you to make a lot of money, but for
Yeah.
them to feel at peace that
Their child's doing
their
okay.
child is doing well.
And I
in the
totally
world.
get it. And that's why I'm not like salty or have like
Right.
parent issues, you
Yeah.
know, like I do empathize for them, right?
Yeah.
Like their struggles are very different from mine. Like the blessing about us is that we can speak fluent English,
Yeah.
right? Like when these things were getting really heavy back in like March, April, and May,
Yeah.
like my mom lives in Georgia and like English is not her first language. So like it was weird to think that people could treat my mom differently, not only because of how she speaks, how she looks, how she dresses, but there's also like this note of fear,
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, that's a weird thing to think about before I even turn 30. Is that like, anyway, so like what I'm trying to say with all this is that like I appreciate everything they did, but part of the reasons why I'm so interested in making sure this is my like forever job is because like I want them to feel like I would like to have this longer conversation. Like even people with y'all, like
Yeah.
what does contemporary Asian American culture look like? Right? Like for real, like what does that look like? And we can't compress it into this like mono group. Like, I mean, the flavors of Asia, I use that jokingly, is
Yeah.
so diverse, right?
Right.
But like growing up, it was always one or two questions, like, are you Chinese or Japanese? And I'm
Right.
like,
Yeah.
nah.
This is true.
Do you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it's strange because like we are making baby steps there, but it's kind of like, what does it mean to be like born with like two cultures,
Yeah.
right? I think that is something that I can't really read a lot in history books that are just normalized, right?
Yeah.
The most that we can look is like oppression, struggle, civil rights. And I'm like, dang, this thing that is so just entitled to people
Yeah.
is obviously a lifelong journey. And I
Right.
think that's like where my headspace is when I, not that I make work about it, but it's like, you know, it's like I spend 6-7 hours a day. So of course, if I'm going to be with my thoughts, I would like every one of my pieces to come from somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Do you
Yeah.
get a lot of inspiration? Like did the inspiration of being an artist? Is that something that kind of you found at home, like through some odd way, like some interesting way from your parents? Where did that inspiration
Oh man, dude.
really come from?
Jokingly, so my brother's like he's talented, like he can draw very well.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I was just like, I'm gonna be better than him. But we
Okay.
were both like very like
Yeah.
naturally talented. My brother gave up art in like middle school. Like we would draw like Dragon Ball Z characters. Like
Oh,
the
yeah.
art itself wasn't like, here I am, 8 years old.
Yeah.
It was more so like sick. Look at this anime character. But then
Yeah.
over time, like when I got to high school, like I only had one art class, like one art teacher, and he was also a tattooist. So that's how even tattoo got my radar, because I was like, how do I make a living off like the one thing I love? Like this thought always existed, but it never was like my dying goal, because after I graduated undergrad, I was fully convinced that I couldn't be a working artist just because of what I've been exposed to. And like, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you have like no work ethic, bad, right? If
Yeah.
you have no drive, bad. So I think that's why I preach a lot that like undergrad art school should never exist, because you can't ask an 18-year-old to make big choices. Like, what do you want to make art about? I'm like, bro, you serious? Like, they literally had to ask to go to the bathroom last year, and now you're asking them to make work that feels important, which is a good like prompt for kids. I'm not using that patronizingly. It's just that you need to live a bit and like gather life experiences to make art that feels personal, but then also you have like an infinite amount of inspiration that you can just pull from, right? So like after I graduated, I was like, cool, I can't be an artist, and I didn't want to tattoo anymore. So I was like, I don't know what to do with my life. And so I fell into service, did that for a while. But that's why I really jive, I think, with people, like having to interact with people every day for money. I was like, so this is social skills, huh?
Right.
But after some time, I realized like I didn't want to do that forever. Like I didn't want to be in service. I didn't want to be unhappy. I didn't want to have no direction. And so I think like fucking 5 years. Wow. Yeah, it's been 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to try doing this art thing again. And
That's very, I would like courageous, right? Like
Is
there's,
it?
because there's no guarantee that you're gonna be able
Oh, I
to
know.
sell any of that work,
I
right?
know.
You literally have to believe that your shit is good enough that it's gonna, someone wants to give you.
And like me and my friends joke a lot. Like to be a painter, man, you gotta have a big dick. Like you have to not really fucking care because,
ladies and gentlemen.
but because painting is like an old medium. It's never gonna die. It's never gonna die. But how do we compete with things that are new mediums? And it's not that we have to mime them or copy that. It's just more so that you have to trust yourself that what you're doing ultimately is you have a stick with some hair and you dip it in color and then you push it around. Like you must have an incredible amount of confidence in yourself to think that is a worthy act to translate thought experiences.
That's true, yeah.
Right? And it's kind of funny because like looking at this, I'm like, damn, look at all this technical setup to achieve one thing.
Right.
You know, it involves a group.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. And I think that's like what also fucked me up about like 2020 was that like I've always worked from home.
Yeah.
You know, like my studio's in my apartment. But then when you add the idea of like no social interactions,
Right.
and I'm like, okay.
There's nothing happening outside.
Yeah. So I'm like locked in this chamber of making and like what used to be, I don't know, like it's not that I ever viewed my like painting as work, but it translated into something I really needed, you know?
It's expression, right? Like
Ultimately it should be.
Yeah, you need that creative release, and I think that's what like public education has kind of halted in, and this is a lot of why I think society is the way it is today, right? Like, I just think like we are like the creative aspect of like our children, like the kids growing up. It's not emphasized enough. It's not practiced enough. It's not celebrated, you know. And it's like, this is what you need to learn. This is who you need to be.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree. I don't think it's necessarily public education, but I think it's the priorities of like what is education. Like we live in a system where education is actually just memorization.
Yeah.
Like standardized testing is not a metric of deeming one's intelligence.
No, for sure.
Right. But it's just that we don't live in a society that actually celebrates critical thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And like with critical thinking, dude, if you actually take a moment to realize like how the world is, you can't help but be sad. For real, man.
Yeah.
You're like, dang, the more you learn, you're like, oh my God, this is, you know? And so I think that's the weirder thing. The
We went through a period, like during the, I guess, July, August of last year when everything was just getting really heavy and like all these movements and and I just like fell into this rabbit hole of like, you know, the conspiracy theories and all the like.
You're like, this is fine.
I want to find the truth that's out there, and and I remember Tom just being like, dude, you're gonna find whatever it is you're looking for. Like, there's no shortage of evil in this world.
Oh yeah, man. It's not even just like evil. Like that's a thing. Like I don't think it's as binary as like oppression, supremacy, marginalization. I think it's a lot more than that. It's that like these systems are built so deep in our life that we actually don't even question a lot of things, you know? And because of that, I'm not saying like wake the fuck up people. I'm just, you know, just like have a little bit of awareness, right? And I think with that, awareness leads to curiosity. Curiosity leads to answers. With answers takes action. That's like the rhythm it should be. But if people stop at like not wanting to address it, that's why I think things feel like they plateau. And wow, this took a really serious turn.
Well, no. I think what's so interesting, just like based on what we were just talking about, especially like just going back to like having like a childlike attitude in the world, right? it's when we're the most curious. It's when we're
Yeah.
courageous. Right, nothing is going to get in our way of what we want to do. Whether it's lying to your parents or whatever to get what you want. There's a determination and perseverance of a child. And I just think it's interesting that like we tend to set these things off to the side as we grow up and we learn or we're told things. For you, like I just thought this was an interesting question. If you were to explain your art to a child, how would you explain like this to a kid?
Oh shit, that's a really good question. Hold on, let me think. Like if a kid asked me,
Dave, what is this?
What
like,
is this?
Yeah.
oh shit,
Right? And like to not have like that communication of like
Yeah.
to someone like me,
Yeah.
right? With that deeper thinking. Like how would you explain this in the simplest way to a child?
I think if
That-
I were to
that
like sell it
loves art.
succinctly to a child, I'd be like, this is just how I think it feels. Like that's what I would say. Like I don't think I would articulate visual, right? Like I want to be like, they'd be like, why the pink, right? Like if a kid asked me that, I'd be like, oh, you're very like tunnel visioning into it.
Yeah.
But like if a kid asks me like, what is your art about? I'll just be like, I'm learning as I go, man. Seriously.
I love
like
that.
I think that's what it is. It's like I have like some anchors that are core, like as an artist, but I'm way more interested in making it the longevity of my life. So like I would always love to like, I don't know, ideally, man, hold myself accountable and like as I make and make, be like, all right, what feels like the next thing I need to make right now? Not want, need. Because each piece leads itself to be the next piece. Like I'm not a big risk taker, right? Like if I want to experiment, they're always done in like pockets of work, and then I expand upon that. So I think if telling the kid, man, I think it's just, I don't know, like freedom, freedom, and like you went on earlier saying we call it childlike, but I think maintaining curiosity and having courage, those are things that are just people.
Right.
They should always be maintained.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that you can like articulately just say that and a lot of people understand, I think that's pretty sad, right? Like, I don't know if it's tangential or the same, but like it took me a long time to learn how to do a gestural mark that felt like energy.
Yeah.
Because I've been conditioned through art school and training and everything, formalism, to really think about the mark I make. So how do I, unlearn that is what you're saying. Like how do you unlearn, how do you get back curiosity, or how do you get back sincerity? Like kids are racist as fuck, but because they don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like I remember I was walking down the street and somebody was like, why are his eyes so small? Like they weren't being racist. They truly just didn't know. Right. So when we come with a level of like, hi, I don't know, and we're willing to match that, that's how you start compassion.
The curiosity to learn and understand.
Yeah, no one's gonna be like, shut the fuck up to like the kid, you know? And so like,
well, some asshole out there.
yeah, some very, very sensitive asshole. But it's just like, wow, I don't even know if I answered your question. I think it just like
no.
dilly-dally.
It was great. I want to jump on this. So you were talking about, so it seems like a lot of art begins with a feeling, right? There's emotions.
I think so.
What do you feel like, what emotion specifically, or if many, fuels your art the most?
Ooh, let me think about this. I think I've always loved witnessing, if not experiencing myself, like shooting your shot. Like that feeling, right? Risk taking.
Yeah.
So like my favorite thing, man, like back when like you could just go to a bar, like you don't have to make reservations and shit, you know, like just go to a bar.
Yeah, hell yeah, it's the best.
Yeah, it's the best. So I'd like to sit with my friends and like we jive and stuff like that. I would always love to see what was happening at this bar. First dates were always so exciting to me because we all know what that feels like. So to witness it, you like kind of root for them or you kind of just like take note, right? Like, and so I think it's nice, like for example, like this, there's two people on a date and like they did that weird little motion where like he like touched her. Right, it was like the first touch, and then like you could tell he was nervous, and I was like, "Yeah, good for you." And then she was smiling, and I'm like, "Good for you," right? So like, I don't know what you call that interaction, except like, I don't want to say joy, right? But because I know what it feels like, it resonates with me enough that when I go back to my studio, I think about a lot of that and being like, "Why was that so fascinating to me?" Right, and so I don't know what feeling that is. Risk taking is not joy. Joy is, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like little shit like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's too abstract, but yeah.
For my brain, it might be.
Well, but you also, there's also a lot of like myth and folklore kind of woven in. What is like your favorite myth or folklore that?
So selfishly, I do love Greek mythology, but that's because my brother and I were like huge
Oh,
buffs
yeah?
of it. Yeah. So this is a weird thing. I don't think I've said this to anyone yet. But so when I was in Korea in like 8th grade, it was when the World Cup was happening in Korea.
Okay.
So I don't know what year that was.
That's
2002.
02, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, wow, that was young. Yeah. So I was there and I was sent to Pocheon to work on a farm, and my brother stayed like next to me, close to. And during this time in Korea, like Cheetos was releasing this super cool toy in their Cheetos bag. It wasn't cool. It was like a plastic.
Yeah.
It's like takji. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Okay.
just like hit each other. But it was printed off this new show about Greek mythology, and it was like a Korean show, and I was like, sick. And I remember being like, all these characters was drawn so cool, and I like took the time to read it.
Yeah.
And then likewise, at the same time that was happening in my life, like I have memories of my mom telling me Korean stories before I go to bed. Like,
Oh, wow.
I don't know if your mom ever told you
for
these
sure.
stories.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Oh, really?
No, my
So,
mom's
I don't know.
running a restaurant.
Oh yeah, I don't know what it's called, but like she
Where's
would
Mom?
always tell me this one of siblings and their parents are gone and they were in charge of like taking care of each other. And then in this world, tigers are sentient, right? Like they have thoughts. So it's very similar to like the Big Bad Wolf, Little Red Riding Hood story where the tiger dressed up as a mom come in, siblings weren't dumb, they ran away, climbed a tree, and then a rope fell from the sky, and the two kids climbed the rope up to escape the tiger, went to heavens.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so it's like this kind of shit. You tell this to a 6-year-old, you're like,
Yeah.
it's a lot of concepts that like a 6-year-old's never heard of, right? So I'm
Interesting.
just like, why is a tiger doing this? Like, why are they climbing this rope all the way
Yeah.
to the sky? But I think having those fantasies as a very young kid instilled into me like how to parse this conversation into image making. Yeah. Sorry,
That's cool.
Lost my train of thought.
No, that was super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like tigers have always been an interesting aspect of Korean culture, and it's prevalent in your work too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I don't mean to do that in like, I'm an Asian artist, right?
Yeah.
Like, first and foremost, like, you're a chef, I'm an artist. We just happen to be Korean. So, therefore, we will always be known as Asian American creatives.
Right.
So, I don't need to preach my horn about it. But it's just more so that when I think about the tiger, like, this is predominantly assigned to us, mostly by Western people, to be
Oh,
like,
really? I didn't
do you know
know
what I'm
that.
saying? Like, I feel like when people ask you, like, what is Asia? I think the first things they'll think of is tigers and dragons.
yeah,
You know?
dragons maybe a little bit more.
right? Like when people think of the U.S., they're like bald eagle.
Yeah.
It's like those kind of presumptions. So I think it's that I want to take back what this means to me, but then
Yeah.
actually do the research that came from like my parents, and then adding myself into it. So like in traditional Korean painting, like the tiger looks dumb as fuck. It's called 멍청이 호랑이.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
like they're called dumb tigers, but it's
Yeah.
because that style of painting is minna painting, which means painting of the people. So what they were doing is that the tiger is a stand-in for the aristocrats, the rich. So that's why they're 멍청이s, right? So like when you actually understand that Korea took the time to put peopleness into something like animals,
Yeah.
it kind of frees up where my work comes from. It's not that I'm like ripping off Carl Jung or like predominantly Western-based ideas. Like Native American stories did the same thing. They tethered aspects of humanity into something like creatures. So as society, we've always been fascinated with like identifying the world to ourselves. But what does it mean that I can do that drawing upon something concrete like Korean culture? You know, and it's not that I'm trying to like promote the wisdom of Asia. It's just like these are visual languages that I just grew up with,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't know, my parents have a lot of like cordial vases in their house, and growing up, looking at these things, I never thought of them in the same way when I would go to the museum and look at a Greek vase, right? I'm just like, same functions, different presentation. Like one is actually lived with, the other one is put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
That's kind of a strange interaction to think
That
about
is-
it, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I forgot what the question was.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what it is either, but I think it's similarly with food, right? Like, I worked in, you know, like new American kitchens, you know, Italian kitchens, like American steakhouse, you know, none of which are Asian.
Yeah.
As soon as I had an opportunity to open up my own spot, it becomes a Korean restaurant, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like, it wasn't on purpose, it
Yeah.
just kind of like, that's just who I am. That's just
Exactly.
where my head goes. That's like it's my soul, right? And that's what I was taught, or not taught, but not like the food on my table. It was Korean food, you
Yeah.
know, like my upbringing was Korean. Like it was a Korean culture inside the house, and when we were out here in the world, it was a completely different world, you know.
Yeah.
So I can see that you, like, a lot of your art draws from, and not even on purpose, right?
Yeah.
It just kind of happens.
It just
where
happens.
You take
Yeah.
from who you are.
Exactly.
Without necessarily.
And the same energy of how you're talking about that you trained under the idea of like Western cuisine is deemed the most important, right? Like if
Of
you
course.
really think it's the same. Like my favorite artists, predominantly all of them are white men.
Yeah.
Right? We throw in some black men in there, but regardless, it's still not people who look like me, you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that I need that. It's just that it'd be nice to like finish off the round table, right? Like have like Captain Planet energy where like every person is there
Yeah.
and we're doing the same thing. And that
Yeah.
way, and it's kind of weird, man. Like Gen Z is 21. So it's kind of strange to me that some people think I'm an artist. And I'm like, oh, I'm still learning as I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like if we set the example of like what you were saying, it's from your soul. I think what you're translating is that that's just honesty, vulnerability. And I don't have all the answers. You don't have all the answers. But it's like figuring it out, making work as I go about it. I think that's the joy that I have. And that's why I love making every day.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree, man. It's figuring it out. That's like our daily
Yeah.
kind of, you know, we are where we are, but it does not mean, you know, this is like we've gotten to a place where we're like, all right, we're good. We know enough.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, no, we know how much we don't know.
Yeah.
You know, and then the further you go, the more you learn, the bigger the world becomes.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
this conversation is like where I come from making art. So like how you translate it through food and how you do it through service, like I just do this shit through static painting. Like I'm sure there's better ways of expressing it, but
Yeah.
the joy that I just get from actually painting itself and like I'm just gonna be a painter, right?
Yeah.
Like
But it's fascinating, right? Because we don't do this and we can't produce this, but to see you do it, it's just like,
oh, thanks, man.
holy shit.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
No, for sure. What do you want people to? I mean, I think you and I had a really good conversation about this when you finished up the mural. You know, me being who I am, I always wanted to know like, what's the meaning behind this, right? What's the significance of this particular piece here, right?
Yeah.
But you kind of said something to me at the restaurant that I won't forget, and that was that you don't like to kind of share that with people. You'd rather let people kind of
Yeah.
feel their own feelings.
Yeah.
And
I mean, truly, if somebody wants to know, I
Right.
will tell them. But like,
Right.
I think the cool thing about art is that like, I still go to the museum and I look at paintings that I fuck with, and it's not important that I know where it came from.
Right.
Like, it doesn't change anything. If anything, I'm like, oh, it makes sense more, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I find always fascinating is when someone visually fucks my work so much that they want to live with it.
Yeah.
Right. So that I try to imagine that dynamic of like somebody at home looking at something I made, and then they obviously had a narrative they had created.
Yeah.
And I think that's great because I think that is a good reflection of what the world is. Like, I'm not trying to shove this conversation, I'm not trying to shove myself into somebody's thought patterns, right?
Yeah.
It's just more so like by them articulating or even having like a bone in their body, like as to what they think about the work.
Yeah.
That's way more rewarding to me because I'm like, oh, cool. So they're adding their own humanness into something that I made.
Yeah.
Right. And like, it's a fine line because I think titling is super important. Like all of my paintings, all of my works, titling is always going to be important because I think we're not at a time where we can get away with just the unaccountability of like untitled number 36.
Oh, interesting.
We can't do that anymore.
Was that a thing in the art world for a while?
I don't know, man. It's been prevalent. I mean, some people are really into the idea of object making or like the idea is that the gesture is what it is. But I'm
Right.
like, that's not enough, man. Like we're living in a time where people don't feel good about themselves outside of their choice.
Yeah.
So if anything, artists, I mean, just any fucking person who expresses and is creative for a living, they are civically obligated to make sure that people don't feel alone.
Yeah.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, right? So like, I'm not trying to make work that makes you feel violent or guilty. It's just honestly, that is a pretty good summary
Yeah.
of a long time, you know?
Yeah. Well-
And so, yeah.
I remember listening to Jerry Saltz, who's a writer and
Art critic.
and just like one thing that really resonated with me was that art isn't supposed to be something that's understood. It is subjective to everybody, and if it makes you feel, it makes you feel, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, right? And I think that listening to him just say that, coming from like the outsider that I am to the art world, it gave me a lot of comfort, knowing that like I would walk into a gallery or I would walk into the the museum, and I would be like, maybe I'm just not getting this.
Yeah.
Maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah.
Like there's a very sense of like, do I understand what's happening here, or am I supposed to just look at this and feel like, this is beautiful, or feel like makes me sad, and just like having that understanding coming from somebody like like an art critic like him.
Yeah.
It was just super comforting to know, and I think that if more people understood that about art. And didn't say, well, that's just a banana with duct tape on the fucking wall, and that's the dumbest, and just be angry by it, and for what it's worth, I don't understand that, but that's just like my thing, and I think that if the art world can seem so intimidating to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, of course.
And I feel like hearing that message was something that really just like, that it just brought me closer to art.
But that's good. I mean, like, I appreciate that you read something like that and felt like it's not permission, but you felt like the permission to be you while experiencing art was okay. But that needs to be just a fucking normal level. Right. Right. That just needs, and that's what I get frustrated about. Like, the funny part is, man, like a museum they're not just blind. Like you walk in, there's a wall full of text to help you get context. Yeah. And if that don't help you look at objects that are just mysterious, like that's fine. That's one role of an artist. That's a different kind of form of making. But I feel like the reason why you and I can talk so casually and get along about it is because how y'all understand what you do and people is the same energy as what I want to do with my work and people. Right. Right. Like I'm not trying to just, I don't know. Like I could. No, I'm good. I'm not gonna say that.
I think, yeah, man. I mean, art is whatever medium, right? Whether it's what we do or what you do, or what they do, right? It's there's always this just like, I don't, just self-consciousness of not understanding or not knowing enough, right? So you feel like you don't belong. Yeah, exactly.
And that's sad.
That's how I feel. That's how I felt going into art museums. Yeah. I love them, and I feel a certain way when I go. And I, to the point where I had a membership, right, at the art museum, and until I went with you last year sometime. Was it last year?
Yeah, no, that was this year.
Oh, was that this year?
Oh, our sick mandate. Yeah, no, that was a good one.
Super jealous of that mandate, by the way. I made a reservation with Dave as soon as you got back. I was like, can I go next? Can I do the tour? I want to go get stoned and just go to the art museum together.
But like it felt a lot like, so the way that you explained it and the way that you interpreted a lot of stuff and the questions that you were answering for me is a lot like how when people, try new food or like, how do you say, like upper highbrow food or just like haute cuisine,
cuisine,
yes, where it's
it's
this big.
There's an intimidation factor there,
yeah, no,
right?
Sure. You're telling me.
So I don't know. I completely understand.
Well, it's interesting. The reason why, I mean, I can see literally your brain turning and think. It's because you and I do the same thing, just different fields. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
so it's interesting because it goes to show like art, food, music, dance, poetry, all of this shit, all of the core is the same. Yeah. It's just that the delivery is different, and then how it's celebrated is different, and then the behind the scenes is how does the industry work, right? Yeah. Like to be a visual artist and to be a musician, completely different job. Yeah. Right. Like even the payout, all of it, very different. But the fact is that like so many people are unaware about how the art world works is, I think, a red flag, right? Like people kind of know how the music industry works, right? Like we have knowledge of it, but more times than not, it's just surprising because people will be like, oh, like, will the work be like just like the function of how it works. And so when this becomes just like common knowledge in the sense that people can be excited about looking at the visual arts, and better yet, man, make the damn thing, right? Too many people believe they can't be artists for a lot of reasons, primarily the biggest one is personal insecurities.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everyone is born creative,
Yeah.
but at some point you just give that up. I think that's sad.
Yeah.
Because if you give it up, that's great. Just make sure you pick it back up. Or it's if you have no creative outlet in your life and your life is just to be unhappy 5 days of the week for you to get 2 days of freedom, and those 2 days are just you doing errands,
Yeah.
laundry, and then maybe hanging out with a friend. Like, what are you gonna do in terms of like finding yourself and your role of like, how do I feel, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying everyone has to be like sensitive, but
Right.
it does help you grow as a person, you know,
Yeah.
like to be in touch with where you're at the moment and how you want to articulate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier about how public education just
Yeah.
fucks up.
Right. Well, I think I think the biggest, like, if we're going to talk about this on like a problem on the large scale, you know, for me, it's really about just being present. Like
Yeah.
that's my big thing. Like, so you like you said, working 5 days, spending 2 days, just catching up with the rest of your life.
Yeah, man.
Sometimes that's my life.
I know,
okay?
but
Like,
that's crazy.
but the difference
Yeah.
is that as a person that's doing what I love to do, I am ever so present in everything that I'm doing
Yeah.
throughout my day. And I think
Yeah.
that there's a big difference there. So like when I put my nose into a wine of glass, there's nothing else that exists at that moment besides that wine, you know? And
Yeah, it's 'cause you give a
sometimes-
shit.
Right. But that's mindfulness and being present
Yeah.
in your daily life. So it doesn't have to be so monotonous. It doesn't have to be so painful. It's just being present and not being, you know, somewhere else.
Yeah.
I will also say that art, and this is just to throw this out there, that I think there's this thing that when I look at what you do and when I look at artists, there is, to an extent, not as many limitations as the creative in what a lot of us do on our
Yeah.
side. And that includes Andy as well. That includes Chuck and Dan over here.
Yeah.
All of in which some form of creative art, we are bound by limitations. Okay. So like you said, alluding back to the music industry, well, you can just create what music you want.
Yeah.
But that's not how the world works. Andy can kind of come up with a dish that is outstanding and so beautiful that he's gonna cry over it. But the reality is that it has to make sense in the business.
Yeah.
It has to be executed by other people. And Dan too wants to make, you know, Oscar-worthy,
Oh, he
beautiful
will.
films, and I know he will.
He will. Look
He already
at him
does.
shake
Let
his
me just
head,
tell you right now.
motherfucker.
But there's a unfortunate reality in this limitation in what we do in a lot of art.
Yeah.
But the only limitation you have as an artist, as a painter, is the outrageously expensive art tools supplies, which I learned about not long ago. Like we're talking fucking horsetail.
Yeah,
And we're talking
like when you got the bougie stuff.
yeah. So like we saw this thing. It was like if all artists would be worth
Wealthy.
millions of dollars if they didn't spend all their fucking money on art supplies. But the limitations that you have are not as much as I feel like.
Yeah,
right?
I
Like
think
you
that's
have
great.
a canvas, you
Yeah.
have paint, and you can do whatever the fuck you want
Yeah.
onto that canvas with no limiting yourself.
Yeah, I
you
do
know?
appreciate that sentiment because I feel like the limitations that you're talking about exists only in like how we think about it, like as artists, right? Like this gallery has like X amount of space. Like what
Yeah.
if I were to do like a 23-foot painting? I'm like, this is it. Like obviously I
Oh,
can't do that.
fair enough.
Like limitations exist
Yes.
in those kind of senses, but a lot of times I feel like most artists get kind of stuck because the idea is that you work your entire life trying to find a style. Once you
Yeah.
find the style, you just ride that style. And I'm like, well,
Right.
why? Like, why even limit yourself? Like,
Yeah.
that's, I think, the backwards thinking to be an artist. Like, me specifically, I love painting because all you do is just put color on a surface. That's a lot of shit in the world.
Yeah.
That's why I can do canvas paintings and murals and anything I want to do.
Right.
Right. So I think how I understand my job is that I'm so dissatisfied sometimes with reality that I make a new reality. And then when that new reality, I think, translates what my thought was, then that new reality becomes more inspiration. Right. So like, it's kind of meta that the fact that like what I was telling you about, like first date energy, right? Like, so when I did that beer can with low res, it was so weird to see people drink the beer can I designed while they're on their date. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, y'all are holding in your hand the thing that inspired me to make the damn thing.
Yeah.
So my reality entered into reality. So I think that's the joy of image making per se, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if it's not limitations, then I think sky's a limit. Like, it's just more so that the artists have to like convince themselves. That's the sad part. Convince themselves that every single thing in their brain is worthy. It's just that push yourself to translate it in a way that you won't get bored, or whereas try to find like a formulaic thing. Like, I made this character and I'm gonna stick to this character forever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? Like, that don't do shit for you, not people, for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it's cool that you said that, because I never really thought of that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's definitely something we envy. if we could spend all the time into making like the coolest fucking cocktail and
Yeah, man, that'd be the dream.
Nobody actually ordered this thing. It was just
Yeah.
fucking cool. Like
Yeah,
that would
man.
be awesome. But the reality is that
Yeah, like side tangent, like the guy who made TikTok retired at 35 to daydream and read more. That's fucking nutso.
That is nuts.
That's a beautiful way to be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm 35. I'm gonna spend the rest of my life daydreaming and reading.
You know what? That's a whole nother thing to unpack. And
Yeah.
and when you hit something that's successful, like we've talked about this. I heard an interview of a gentleman that sold his first big tech company, and I'm trying to keep this thing short. So he was reliving the day in an interview on what it felt like to make that sale, and he was just kind of like saying, yeah, there's all these calls, there's all these things, and then that one day it came, and then the phone call and he picked it up and he said, the attorney was like, this is it, are you ready? Like, we're going to transfer the money now. This is a lifelong journey that this guy's just been on. And he's like, do it. And as soon as he did it, he hung up the phone. He took a deep breath. He looked at his bank account, and all of a sudden there was millions and millions of dollars in his bank account. And then something happened to him. And he said that was the scariest moment of his life, was that he realized he had just accomplished this amazing feat, and he's now got all this money.
So what do you do?
And then he realized nothing has changed. I'm still the same person I was 10 seconds ago when I picked up that phone call, and now I have all this money.
Yeah.
And now what do I do? Is the next thing bigger than what I just did? Is it going to be an utter failure? There's this insane pressure now that he lives with that says, can I do better than I did the first time around? Or is everything I do from here on out just an absolute failure and a mess? So there's like another side to that,
I
you know, and I'm sure he's daydreaming on a beach somewhere nice.
Probably.
But something inside of him is definitely, when you get to that kind of level of success, there's something in there that's like, what the fuck am I going to do now? You know?
Yeah, no, I get that. I feel like it
Constantly
goes back to
trying
that.
to outdo yourself.
Yeah, man. But it goes back to that. Our fault is that comes from us being raised in like a capitalistic culture.
Right.
Like, if you ain't doing shit, you're worthless.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing better than what you did, you're worthless.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, what if I don't want to be better? What if I like want to just keep honing in this thing I'm so good at and die at doing that, right? Like,
I think that's happening now, though.
Oh, for sure,
I think
man.
the Gen Z, and if
The
there's a
Gen
name,
Z.
if there's a name for the next one, I think.
Gen Alpha.
Is it Gen? There's
Yeah,
a
man.
Gen Alpha.
I'm
Okay,
serious,
I just
yeah.
learned that.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I
dude.
think that I
fucking
They
think
went all the way back to
Yeah, they got a
I
fucking
think that,
apex predator.
that's
man.
happening in this new culture
Yeah.
and society. I think that people are. I was talking about this with Andy, that you had the baby boomer society, a generation, and then the generation that followed, and everyone's starting to look upwards and be like, are they actually happy? Like, so they went for security, they went for insurance, they went for retirement funds, IRAs, all that jazz. They've got their money, they've got their nice little house and timeshare and vacation home, and they're like, but then they're looking at their parents and they're like, they're not fucking happy.
Yeah.
Like, is this what I want? And that's starting to trickle down to these next generations.
Yeah.
And they're just like, no, I'd rather live in a van and drive across the country and paint and, fucking vlog and I'm okay with just enough. And I think that we're starting to see that, and we're feeling that in the labor force right now.
Dude.
It's a big thing.
It's kind of crazy.
And I don't know how I feel about it. Like, for me, I kind of wanted to be a vagabond for a little bit. There was a part of me that was ready to pack my 4Runner, and that's why I got that thing.
Bye.
And I was gonna just fucking hit the road, and so I kind of commend that. I think that even if you did it at your early 20s and you just kind of like live that, you know, kind of lifestyle for a little bit, like,
Yeah.
fuck yeah. Like,
Yeah.
as long as you're learning and you're getting character, you're building character from it, and it's an experience that you'll never get again.
Yeah, man.
You
No,
know?
I totally agree. And that's the thing. Like, I always joke to a lot of people that, like, if you can physically sleep on a couch and it don't fuck your back up, you owe it to yourself to fucking take chances.
Right.
Right? Like, seriously, I don't need that much. Like, I ain't got no mortgage. I don't have a family.
Yeah.
So, whatever, like, it's cool that I'm able to sustain myself off the thing I love.
Right.
But because I do that, that's why I hold myself way more accountable to make sure that I treat it respectfully,
Right.
diligently, right? Like, a lot of my friends are just like, oh man, you must love what you do. I'm like, nah, fuck you, man. Like, when you make what you love into a job, you will never stop working.
Right.
So that's the weirdest part, man. I don't want to be a workhorse. I don't want to be sad.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, all right, how do I find that balance of, like, not work hard, play hard, but like rest, recover,
Yeah.
draw some more inspiration and information from that, and I guarantee you I'm gonna make good work.
Yeah.
But we live in a place of burnout culture is okay. That's fucking weird.
It's
Right.
celebrated.
That's fucked up,
Yeah.
man. Like, we're asking people to literally keep
Killing themselves.
pushing themselves until they get so fatigued that living becomes hard.
Yeah.
That's a weird system. Anyway, this is now getting really.
No, dude,
No, it's an interesting topic that you brought up. I wish
Yeah.
Anjo had a microphone on her right now, because we were talking about balance, and she said something very interesting about, and I'm going to do a terrible job of paraphrasing this, but it's not to. The word is not balance, right? Is this what is the word? Harmony, right? So I think that
Harmony.
you know, this is something that really struck a chord with me, because I've been preaching that word
Yeah.
for probably the last like 5-6 years of my life. Ever since I found myself deep into like this work life, I was traveling for work. I was pushing myself as hard as I possibly fucking could.
Yeah.
And then I had an amazing trip, and from that trip I came back and I realized that on one of my 35 epiphanies, I was like, I have to balance my life, or it's all for naught. And so
Yeah.
I've been preaching that word for the last like 5-6 years, just making sure, like, you know, me and Andy put in a lot of time at the restaurant
Yeah.
to try and find that balance. And so we were talking about this the other day, and she said, balance is not the word you're looking for, it's harmony. And I think that there was and at first I was like, the fuck is the difference? Like, the fuck
You're like,
is
semantics.
It's
Yeah.
you know, but it does make sense, right?
does.
Balancing just means, oh, good and bad.
Yeah.
Like, you're trying to, you know, is there more bad that you're putting in, right? That's kind of like the idea that we were.
It's like a
you were-
seesaw.
yeah.
Like, you're literally just trying to maintain balance. Whereas
Right.
I think harmony, it's like when a dish tastes good and all the flavors go together.
Yeah.
That's harmony.
It's like an orchestra.
Yeah, but
Right.
people don't do that with things that feel hard. Like, dude, like, I'm a pretty easygoing dude, you know? But, like, March, April, May was, like, a first time in a very long time
Yeah.
where, like, the world made me question myself.
Yeah, no.
So it's like, cool, okay, so it's up to me. And it's not that, like, pull up your bootstraps. It's like, I
Yeah.
didn't do that shit alone, man.
Yeah.
It's that when you understand the difference, and I think that's pretty succinct, right? Balance and harmony is that harmony is when people are okay, that they know that they're not okay. It doesn't,
love that,
there's
yeah.
nothing to be embarrassed about, right?
Yeah.
It's just that you shouldn't do it by yourself. Like,
Right.
I think what's interesting about the three of us is that we were raised with the idea of community first, right? Like, really think about it. Like,
Right.
I have to call you guys youngs, technically, but I
Yeah.
don't, right? So the idea is that we were raised that we had mentors, we had each other. So the idea is that if we ever were struggling, that we wouldn't be alone.
Right.
But then we come from a country that has so much stigma about feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the irony, whereas in the US, the stigma about feelings is inadequacy. And I'm like, that sucks.
Yeah.
You know, and I think I'm put in a different place because my whole life is about expression.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, me being me, like a straight Asian American kid.
Yeah.
Lots of level of patriarchy,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like way back ago when you were saying like generations before us, like we look and they're like, oh shit, they're not happy. Like what that is, in my opinion, is that we see the trauma that each generation had before us.
Mm-hmm.
We take what we like, we don't fuck with what we don't like, and we don't bring it.
Right.
And then I guarantee you, if we ever have kids, our kids are going to do the same shit to us.
Right.
Like whatever bad, toxic, bad shit that we do, they're not going to fuck with, but they'll fuck with the good things inherit the good things and uninherit the bad things.
Yeah.
So hopefully each generation gets better and better. It's just more so that like, I think it's strange that we're having this conversation, but this conversation also existed like decades ago.
Right.
Like this shit is so important, but it don't change.
Yeah.
If anything, we have like cooler devices to like talk about
Right,
it now.
exactly.
Isn't that weird?
They're like, I don't want to be a blacksmith,
Yeah.
Dad. You know, it's like,
You're like, you're gonna take over the family business.
I want to be an archer.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's dive into this food, man. So I want to.
Oh, yeah.
It's. I'm sure you're hungry.
I'm sorry.
So every episode, almost, we like to highlight and feature a local small business. Today, we're enjoying coffee from Dark Matter. Andy, you want to share a little?
Yeah, Dark Matter Coffee. It is located at 738 North Western Avenue, just down the street from us here. Yeah, and it's a local small business. They've
getting
been
pretty
around
big now.
for. Are they?
They're getting pretty big.
Yeah.
Don't they have like the weirdest coffee blends, like unicorn blood or something
Oh,
like
like the
that.
names of it?
Yeah, the names
Yeah.
are always like
Oh,
so
man,
fucking
that's
out
pretty
there.
good.
But yeah, I remember hearing about these guys a long time ago.
Yeah. Good people there, man. Great coffee.
Oh, what is that?
Delicious.
soda
Delicious.
pop?
So, food today, guys. I'm very excited.
All together
So I remember during the pandemic when, I was the official delivery driver for Perilla. I was we got a lot of orders down Grand and California. I don't know why that pocket, like I would deliver there almost once a day. And so every day I'm driving down Grand, I would pass altogether now.
Yeah.
I was very excited when this wine shop opened up. Me and Anjo really enjoy drinking a bottle or two or three. And
6,
so
5, yeah.
when this new wine shop opened up, I was super stoked. This wine shop is located at 2119 West Chicago Avenue. And they got a nice little patio that they built out that you can go and enjoy. And I've been driving by all of last year, I noticed that they were just doing window service. Like, I don't know how they set it up, but they had a window open, which like isn't one of those like folding up windows.
Yeah.
So because I saw it today, I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, how did you guys? Anyways, they have a nice little deli inside this wine shop.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
I had no clue they sold food.
There's like
Yeah.
cured meats. There's
Yeah.
really nice cheeses. They do a lot of local cheese. They work with a lot of local farmers. So the sandwich we got today is like their signature. Also, great fucking wine selection. They had L's Vineyard from Whitcraft,
Oh, nice.
2020 vintage. Yeah, Marcus
What? Why don't we have
Aurelius Yaknis. I will be calling you later today to find out how we can acquire some delicious
L's Vineyard.
Woodcraft L's Vineyard from VineJoy. Today we have the French Exit, guys. That's the name of the sandwich. Okay.
What
you guys?
is this?
You guys dive in too. There's.
Oh, so it's gonna be
There's
like a
enough for
little
all.
mukbang thing? Is that what we're doing now?
So
Gotta incorporate it somehow.
Yeah, dude.
I called. She said that this was probably one of the most popular sandwich options.
We all the same sandwich.
Look at that beautiful
Oh, what's
baguette,
top,
guys.
man?
First of all,
Why can't I open this? I'm stuck.
it has.
Oh, jeez. Thanks.
I'm pulling up some.
I
Pulling
love
up some
the-
info on these
the
guys here.
rappers, man.
All together now.
Someone's doing art over there.
All right, are you guys
we
ready to
eat?
hear about the sandwich? This
yeah,
is
let's do it.
called
Dig in, dude.
Oh, can I? Oh, sick. All right, cool.
sandwiches. Where are you? Okay, French Exit. It's underground meats salami.
Oh, this is good.
Pleasant Ridge Reserve. I assume that's a cheese.
This is mustard seeds.
It's got aioli, mustard that they make in house, and a demi baguette. Chef, what demi is just small? Small baguette.
Can you answer this question? What makes good bread?
So many.
So
factors.
many things, man. That's
Can you
that's
give me like
that's
the,
a whole
like
episode.
the spark notes? Like if what is it? Crunch? I just think about ratatouille.
Well, I think it also depends on what you're eating, what kind of sandwich you're eating. For example, we were talking about
I think it's fucking good.
yeah, like Katz's Deli, for example, in New York, right? They just use rye bread,
Okay.
right? No toast. It's just soft regular.
Just rye, huh? You're not gonna give rye any love and Like we're talking.
Well, I'm saying, then you have like very crusty breads like this,
Right.
right?
Right.
But yeah, it depends on. I guess it depends on how you want to build your sandwich.
That makes sense. I like bread like this.
Well, I thought the question was what makes good bread good.
Well,
No,
that's
what
what
I'm
I'm
saying.
saying. There's
What makes
many
good
different
bread.
types of bread. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's just like what's good
That's
wine,
how
right? Like-
ignorant I am. Like food.
No, I mean, no, that's not a. There's just like everything that exists in food. Like, I'm even now like me and Andy we're 36, and he's been working in food for fucking
You're 19.
over a decade.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in the front, but I always learned about food. Even now, I'm like constantly learning that there's like 2 ways to break up the short loin, right? Like there's so many fucking different ways to make a baguette, right? And like there's just all these little intangibles too, like outside of precision, outside of like consistency, outside of like the type of equipment, the type of oven. You know, there's just so many fucking variables. And if you take the time to put into practice every little detail and step, right? That's what makes
Yo.
quality.
For example, like I remember, like we grew up with sarlangtang, like
Yeah.
naengmyeon, like all these broths, right? And they're these rich bone broths that we boil.
Yeah.
We bring the water up to a boil and we extract all that collagen, that flavor, all that good stuff. I remember we were doing a ramen competition at a restaurant I was working at, which was led by, white people, and they laughed at me when I was making the broth. They're
Why?
like, because you're not supposed to bring it to a boil. When you make stocks, it's like, it's
so
like
they
a soft
judged you.
simmer. Yeah.
Why? That's so
And
dumb.
they laughed. They're like, "What's this kid doing?" You know. And I was like, "This is how we make it." You know, like if you if you don't want to do
It's
it
also
the way
kind
you
of
do it, then.
fucked that their first reaction to laugh.
Yeah,
you
but
know?
that's just I was I was probably like year 3 or 4 in my cooking, and so.
Wait, I'm so
obviously-
sorry. What happened? They said you can't boil what?
No, so like when you
He was
make when
so
you make,
much into eating, he wasn't even listening.
when you make stock, right?
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to let it roll hard because you want the broth or the stock to be clean, right?
Okay.
So you don't want all those impurities in there. So you just let it simmer.
Okay, got it. So I feel like I would have totally made that mistake.
Yeah.
When
But
I was on
like,
that stock
but when you're
craze.
making like Korean broth or soup, like sarongtang, or you're making like ramen broth, it's a hard boil.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's just two different techniques to achieve 2 different things, but these people
Oh, they were like, okay, I remember you telling me
yeah,
this.
they're like, what are you
You're
doing?
like, why the fuck are
Like,
you murdering that?
Yeah, and then literally I watched them on the side. They're like, dude, what is this kid doing? Like, are you gonna
Yeah.
let him do that? You know?
Yeah.
And, yeah, man. And I remember like even it was actually with Chef Chris that he was there, and he was like, no, like let's fucking do it like this. You know, this is proper. And
Right.
he was in my defense, obviously, but still, man, the fact that people are just like so judgmental and so like, oh, this is. Anyways,
Is that just some like stodgy?
That was so good. Andy was
He just escaped.
Andy was so into explaining the story. Didn't even realize Dave was gone.
where's Dave?
And he's like, anyways, let's
God,
show. And
just
he's like,
left
what
the
the?
show?
That's great.
Do you think
hold on.
is the not boiling thing like a flavor thing, or is that like just like the snotty French thing of like
Different-
you want it clear?
Different result is what you're trying to
But its
achieve.
flavor will be
2 different results. Yeah. Speaking of results, we'll wait for Dave on the scoring thing. But did you guys jump into this Kinoto yet?
So good. I want to make a
bitter-
Manhattan
give it
with
to me,
it.
I'll
That's
open
my
it.
first instinct.
Can you?
It's like a bitter.
Here, give it to me. Look at
Like a
Dave.
digestive. It tastes
Talented art. Oh, I thought you were gonna. I was like a true gentleman. Here. Okay, guys. So let's just recap what we've got here.
This
So
is like Fernet soda.
it's so good. Okay, it's called Kinoto. This is organic fruit from Galvanina. I just have to go to the Italian accent every time I read Italian. But it's like a nice herbal. No, you're not crazy about it?
I like the bubbles.
It's like a nice bitter herbal soda.
What is it?
There's no alcohol in here, but
There should be.
Yeah, it's like
It
if
kinda
you
tastes
like
like-
if you like Fernet Branca,
Yeah, that's what
right?
it tastes like.
Nope.
This is like
The soda version.
This is like a soda version of Fernet Branca,
With no alcohol.
but not as like an Amaro. Yeah,
It kind of just
an
tastes
Amaro
like
Spritz.
beer.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
It says
an Amaro
0%.
I'm gonna say Malort Dr Pepper.
It says 0% juice.
That's pretty good.
found
I was
it-
gonna say like sweeter root beer.
Yeah, so they don't believe in juice. It's actually
Yeah.
made with
They
100%
made, it, they
organic
made it
fruit.
a point to put it on print. In print, it literally says 0% juice.
Okay,
They don't
so
fuck
the
with
French exit, and then we have Zapp's. If you guys are familiar, Zapp's potato chips. This is the New Orleans kettle style voodoo flavor. What is that?
What's voodoo?
What is voodoo?
Voodoo?
What is that flavor? I get.
Isn't voodoo like a witchcraft?
It is, but what do you think it tastes like?
Yeah, I'm like, what are the flavors you're getting, guys?
New Orleans.
This doesn't smell like voodoo.
We're blind tasting this.
What
here.
does voodoo
Not
smell
really
like?
blind.
Not this way. This kind of smells like just like the
So it's like tangy.
NASCAR.
It's like-
barbecue
It's
dip.
It's like barbecue meets salt and vinegar.
okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
That's not my vibe.
Not as like molasses sweet kind of barbecue though, but it's like
This is good.
oh my god, why don't we just read the freaking back, guys? It says it doesn't say anything.
Kinda
I'm so
tastes
sorry. It's just-
It has like a
It just says-
pickly
yeah.
finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Onion powder,
okay.
turmeric.
Anyways,
paprika.
well, let's dive into the scoring system here. We're definitely got our fix in here. So, just a sandwich. We're not going to critique the chips, although they are fantastic. So,
Out of 10 or 5?
for keeping it consistent,
All right.
It's 10 high.
it's 0 to 5 or
0 to
1 to
5?
5. 1 to 5. We've never had a 0 before, except where we ate last night. I won't say the name of that restaurant.
oh damn.
Would get a 0.
Oh my god. I don't know if I would say 0.
Just so you guys know, like for those of you listening, like I keep it fucking real. I'm just saying that like, you know, like we always have these guests on the show and they're like, oh 5, 5, 5, 5, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna keep it real.
I don't want that.
I'm saving my 5s. Although I did give, I gave 2 5s on the Juan Kim and Spencer
Was it
episode.
Maria's or no?
Maria's Taqueria.
Yeah, Maria's
I gave a
Taqueria.
5 on the filling because it was a really good amount of filling. And then I gave a 5 on the value because it was tremendously delicious tacos for $2.50 or whatever it was.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Damn, that's
And
good.
Okay.
Pilsen.
So we're gonna start with flavor, 1 to 5. Dave, no decimals.
No decimals.
Whole
No
numbers
decimals.
only.
Whole
Yeah.
numbers only. Okay.
I'm not doing that thing where you're saying like all the guests say 5, but this is truly
Yeah, flavor. Just flavor,
Shit
not
that I love.
not the crunch, not
Yeah, man.
anything.
The flavor
Just
is what I
strictly
love.
flavor.
So I'm like a pretty basic bitch eater. Like I'm a big fan of meat and cheese. And then I think I told you I was like, oh, these mustard seeds are such a good thing. Flavor 5.
The homemade mustard is really great.
Yeah.
Flavor 5.
Yeah.
Andy. By the way, is that sopressata? Is that what the meat is?
I think so.
A salami. Okay.
So aggressive.
Yeah, there was like a
Yeah, he's like. Would it be, chef?
salami and some local cheese here. I think the meat is made here locally too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
She mentioned it on the phone. I just can't remember. Like I think the cheese is from Wisconsin.
No decimals.
No decimals.
4.5.
No decimals.
Man, I don't know. It's not a 5, but
5?
I think it's more than a 4. But
I'm gonna go 4.
yeah,
Yeah?
I'll say 4.
I'm just holding my 5. I'll tell you this: for something this simple though, aioli, mustard, cheese
That's
and
what I'm
salami,
saying.
bread,
Yeah, man. That's all
tons
it
of
is.
flavor.
Yeah, dude, it fucking slaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say.
The
there it
kids
is,
are saying
the
that.
slaps.
You guys hear that?
I tell you, man. We talked
It
about this. Me and
slaps.
Chuck already know.
Man.
That
I'm
that
just not
track
hip
slaps.
to
This
it.
sandwich slaps. All right. So, for it being this simple, yeah. If I had decimals, I'd go there, but I'm gonna go 4.
Yeah,
But it's a fantastic sandwich on flavor.
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
OBR. So that's optimum bite ratio.
Shout out.
Yo,
to
is that a real
Steve
thing?
Delinsky.
I feel like we got to. Do we have to shout out Delinsky every time? Can we just?
every time.
Can we just say from now and forever, the
Shout out.
OBR will always belong to Steve Delinsky?
Wait. Can you? What is it? What does it stand for?
So optimum bite ratio. How balanced is the bread to the meat to the
whoa, never
to the
heard of
burger
that.
patty
Bread to
to the
everything
taco
else.
filling to the burrito?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it too much bread? Is it too much sauce? Is it too much?
I mean, selfishly, I think it could do with like one more piece
Of
of
meat.
meat. Yeah. I agree. That's just me though. Obviously,
No,
you.
it's me too.
Yeah. But I think
So your scoring on the OBR would be what?
3.
3.
Because 4, a 4, because they would fix it to be a 5 if they added one more piece, right? 4.
Would it be a 5 if they added one more piece?
Yeah, man. This is truly like, if I was like taking a break and I was waiting for paint to dry and this place was like, fuck yeah, man, this place is like walking this, I'd be like, yeah, this is where I'm gonna get my lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
From a this is a wine bar, a wine shop.
So?
I think there's that's.
So they can serve.
It's
So we
like
should adjust this.
it's like it's like when you go to Texas and there's gas stations that serve food and they're incredible and you're like,
That's
"Son
the
of
thing, though.
Yeah, I know, but it's like it's fucking out of a gas
They're like
station. You
siblings.
still have that.
All right.
Like versus like a full-on Michelin full kitchen, right?
Well, there
Like,
are. Well, I'm saying that I like that they do it right,
I agree. It's very simple. Like this is what you would get in.
and they don't use being a wine bar as a reason to do a lesser version of anything. you
Ooh,
know?
I never said they were doing a lesser.
I know, but
version.
I'm saying
Yeah.
I'm just I'm
you
giving
gave
put
that
them up.
crutch, like, but
Put
they
them up.
are
Giving
a
a-
wine bar.
Just,
I'm saying they're fighting with one arm tied behind their back. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
You know,
And they're doing a great job,
they're doing a fantastic job.
unlike this guy.
That guy's
He's getting his ass
trying
Yeah.
kicked.
hard.
yeah. I'm gonna go OBR here. I'm gonna say that this is. I'm gonna go with. I want to go 5.
Oh, yeah?
I really think like.
It doesn't need another
I
piece
think
of
this
meat?
is so classic. Like I haven't been to Paris, but I imagine that if I was in Paris today,
This is what Parisians eat.
and this is like if you went to a cafe, this is what you would get.
What
A
is this
nice
sandwich
little
called?
demi baguette,
French
a
exit.
couple slices of good cured meat, and some good cheese. It's called the French exit
The French exit.
because this is in Paris.
It's appropriate.
That's why they called it a French exit. But it's like I like how they did this, but they're like we're gonna use a local meat, we're gonna use a local cheese, we're gonna make our mustard in house. They probably whipped up the aioli themselves.
Taking calls.
Yeah.
I give it a-
Caller,
I give it a
What do you think? That would be good.
I give it a 4.
All right, I'm gonna go 4 too.
OBR.
So I'm at a 4 and 4 right now.
Peer pressure.
Last but not least, Dave, I'm just saving my 5s out there. You know, I want to live my life.
No.
with
I get it.
Yeah.
knowing
There is a.
there's a 5
There
out
is a
There's
there.
a 5 out there.
There is a
You know?
5.
No, I feel you.
Come on, like
Otherwise-
Katz's is a 5. I keep talking about Katz's.
Katz's is going to be a 5.
It's a 5.
That's a 5.
You argue that, I'll fight.
Schwartz's Deli up in my and why am I?
It's a 3.
Wow. All right. I'm taking Andy back to Montreal. We're gonna go to Schwartz's Deli so I can change his mind here. Value, guys. This sandwich is $11. Okay. A la carte. $11. Daniel is.
What's a yeah? Yes, it is.
He's like not
$11.
Can we agree that like just for contrast, this is like the equivalent of a Subway footlong?
No.
Is it safe to say?
In size?
No.
It was like probably this big.
Are you out of your mind?
No, it had to be like 8.
Dude, this is
it looks
half.
like 8 inches.
This is
9
half,
inches?
so that's like.
No, but it was like this. That's like a foot. That's like a foot.
That's
It's
not
gotta
a
be.
foot.
Okay, maybe just slightly under a foot, but that's pretty close to a foot. 12 inches, guys.
I have a.
This is you're telling me
I have a
that's not a
ruler.
foot?
I do. In my bag. I have measuring tape. I'll bust it out.
Wait a
If you-
second.
if you-
I want to make this clear. So Subway is a foot long, right? So
Yeah.
it's 1 foot.
The 1 foot.
This was almost a foot, guys.
Okay.
Am I
10
I-
inches tops.
I don't think
Okay.
so.
Tops.
Yeah.
And that's being nice, Chuck.
No, I think 10 inches. Okay, so
All right, so this
anyways,
8-inch
$11, guys, for quality bread, quality meat, quality cheese, handmade mustard, probably house-made aioli, packaged in this nice, beautiful paper.
Scrolls on.
Amazing service. I'm gonna
Took
go
some time.
with a 5 on just value. I think it's so easy to do this kind of sandwich wrong, and I think that you can do such a lazy job at this, and I think that they did it really well.
Yeah. I'm gonna give it a 5 because I'm not gonna be upset like after eating that. Like I'm not gonna be like, oh man, I just pissed away $11.
You're not even gonna finish that in one sitting. You know what I mean?
I did.
Okay.
Fuck you.
Awesome. So you went 5. I went 5. Andy.
I'm gonna go 4.
So stickler.
I gave it a 5.
No, I
All
mean
together now.
it's all great. But
Shout out.
I thought we were holding back
Thank
for
you.
5s. Like if
Thank you for lunch altogether.
Yeah. I just value. Value is the one you can give a. I
yeah,
feel, you know.
4.
All right.
I feel like that's such a Korean question.
What
Like,
would
what is the value?
what would have what would the price had to have been for you to say that that's a 5, knowing the food cost, the labor cost, all that stuff built in here. Like you and I run these numbers. We talk numbers all day with this industry. That's an $11 sandwich.
Is it?
Keep in mind the article that just came out from months ago
Yeah.
on the $10 sandwich, where they lost $1.25 after every sandwich. What do you think that sandwich should be? To be a 5.
Still a 4.
Wow. Okay.
No, I mean it's.
I think
great.
the reality
it's great
is
all
that
around.
people shouldn't expect quality food like this for under $14. Like that's the reality.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like the cost of labor, the cost of everything that goes into running
What
a
were we
business.
talking about the
nowadays.
other day or earlier? The $20 sandwich
place next
over
door,
there.
yeah.
Yeah. Was it?
I'm not gonna say the name.
I know. Yeah, yeah. But do you think that was too expensive?
Me personally, yeah, because this is like, so I can justify.
But you told me they gave you
Yeah, I
this
can
much meat.
justify why that's so expensive because they put a shit ton of things. It's just that when I'm trying to pick up lunch, like I'm not trying to look to spend like $23 on a sandwich, you know. So this is why this is perfect for me because eating this one guy, that's like a perfect amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's fair.
We got our numbers. We got the results, guys. Huge shout out again. Thank you all together now. They were so friendly. And by the way, the staff, very helpful and just awesome place. Can't wait to go back.
Thank you all together.
Try some of their other foods there. They got a big menu for a wine bar. And go check them out, Chicago Avenue. And they're open for lunch, which is awesome. That's like a hard thing to find in the west side of the city.
Yeah.
It's like a good lunch spot. So, I want to do a little quick fire round. You guys want to do a little quick fire round with Dave?
Yeah, dude, I'm here. What's the quick fire?
So it's going to be a series of questions. You have no time to think about the
Oh,
answer.
it's like-
You just want to answer the question as fast as you can.
Okay.
And then we can dive into some of the responses later if we choose to.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know what? Shout out to Taqueria. Taqueria,
Taqueria.
which is right over here on Western Avenue. They were so kind to loan us these chairs that you're seeing us sit on, or hearing us sit on. Here we go. Are you ready,
I'm ready.
Mr. Huh? What's the first thing you grab at in the morning?
First thing I grab in the morning?
Yeah.
First thing I grab. Well, I guess my phone, but
Okay. That's it.
okay.
What do you think people notice most about you?
Oh man, I don't know. I think hair.
Hair?
Yeah.
All right. Adjective that best describes you when you're drunk?
Nasty.
Nasty. Mr. Nasty.
Sorry.
Biggest pet peeve?
Biggest. Oh man, I got a lot of these. Off the top of my head.
Yeah, first one that comes to mind.
I fucking hate when people slam doors. Like when they slam it for no reason. It
Oh, like intentionally
yeah, like when they
slamming.
leave and they just like close doors, or like when they. It's just like I'm like.
Not if the door slams on its
Yeah,
own.
if the door slams on its own, like if the wind happens,
Okay.
but if someone does that, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Like
What
that's
was your last
you and every
door
Uber,
slamming
Uber
experience?
driver out there probably just fucking. That's like probably. The same
Oh
thing.
yeah, I'm probably like so gentle with the door. I'm like,
Yeah.
have a good night.
Uber
sir."
drivers probably fucking
Yeah.
hate that. Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
No, man, that's gross.
Favorite musical artist?
Favorite, like musician or like musicals?
Musical artist.
Like he's saying like Broadway musical
like
or
musicians or
A
like
musician, yeah. I'm so sorry.
ooh, let me think. Oh, this is always so hard.
It is hard.
Off the top of my head, first one. I mean, my instinct is Whitney Houston.
Oh shit, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
great one. Wow.
Ask for permission or ask for forgiveness. Yes.
Forgiveness.
First day, favorite day of the week.
Every day is kind of the same for me. I mean, I don't have a job. Like my Saturdays are Mondays, and then my Sundays are.
So every day.
Every day's the same
No,
day.
but that's not true, Dave, because the world outside you is doing things. So
Favorite day, I would say Thursday. I think
Okay.
Thursday. If I had to pick,
Okay.
Thursday.
Twist your arm.
Yeah.
Childhood nicknames.
This is interesting. My mom calls me Wonnie.
Wonnie.
Or like Wonsunga.
What's
like,
your Korean name?
Howon.
One.
One.
Just one.
One,
Oh,
yeah.
you're one of those special Koreans, dude. I love that. There's, the first time I learned that you could have a singular syllable in a Korean name was like last year. All my existence, yeah. I always thought every Korean was like 1, 2,
Three-part?
3.
Yeah.
Ojehyuk,
Yeah.
something like that. Howon, I love that.
Thanks, man.
What's your brother?
Howon.
Un?
Ung.
Howon. Howon. And what was you said there was another nickname coming out.
Oh, Wonsunga. Because my sign is a monkey in Chinese zodiac.
Wonsungi.
Yeah, so my parents would call me Wonsunga.
You're 92?
And then my redneck friends would call me Davo. But that was shortly because Jackass came out.
You can join Dave, the O clan.
I don't think I look like a Dave. Everyone always asks me, they're like, do you prefer Dave or David? And I'm like,
Oh, what do you
I
prefer?
feel like I'm 2 feet too short and like 120 pounds too light and beardless to be a Dave. Like there's a very like association with that name. And so I always joke that I just go by David, but I don't take offense when someone calls me Dave.
David, right there. I love that.
Thank you, sir.
Where are we? Know every language or speak to animals.
Speak to animals, man. You think I want to talk to more people? Are you fucking kidding
You know
me?
what's so great about this question? Everybody jumps to the animals.
Yeah, man.
And like the first couple, they were like, people fucking suck. I'd rather talk to animals. You
Yeah.
might not like what animals have to say.
Yeah, I know.
They're just like, where's my nut? Where's
Yeah,
my
and I'll be
nut?
like, I'm
Where's
gonna
my
teach
nut?
you.
Where's my
I'm
nut?
gonna teach you. There's no nut.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or like I'm gonna eat you.
These animals.
Ooh,
I'm like
I'm
just
gonna
trying to
kill
imagining
you.
what
Just, like,
animals
eat a
are saying now.
Look delicious.
How long does it take for you to get ready in the morning, Dave?
I don't know, like 10 minutes.
10 minutes. 1 to 10, how good of a... Oh, you don't have a driver's license. Have you ever driven?
I haven't driven in 11 years.
Oh, but you have driven. Mm-hmm. How good are you? 1 to 10.
I'm gonna say bad. It's been 11 years. Like, I know how a car works,
Yeah.
right? Like, I know how it works.
Stick shift?
No. I just forgot the laws. And so I'm
Yeah.
like,
The
'Cause-
laws.
Well, red means stop.
no, I think I got that.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, teleportation. I think about this sometimes.
I
Not
think
every
about
day.
it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
I think teleportation would be the best because it would save a lot on traveling, right? Like if I wanted to go anywhere, just beep boop, and I'm there.
Yeah, I don't get the flying. I just don't understand it.
Bro, this is my joke about flying. Anyone who says they like, oh, I want flying as a superpower, be like, bitch, do you run? Like, do you run every day?
Yeah.
No, because flying would be the exact same. It would be exercise in the sky. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Would it be hard though?
because
Would it be hard
if
to
you
fly?
really think about it, running is kind of cool. Like if we do it fast enough or super
Yeah.
fast, so anyone could fly.
You
They'll
think
just.
the ability to fly would take a lot of your energy?
I think so.
Ooh, I never even thought
I
about
just-
it like that.
Yeah, I
Listen.
guarantee you'd be too lazy to fly. You'd be like, oh,
It's not even about that. If you have to fly,
would
you
you
have to
be
wear
able
a
to fly?
jacket up there, dude.
It's cold.
It's fucking cold.
Yeah.
You might get wet from a cloud.
Yeah, the clouds
I want
are-
to. This is like people. But people
true.
don't think
And
about
windy.
this. It's stupid.
You
dude.
have to have a lot of like upper
So
body.
much
You need
practicality.
you need goggles.
to an imaginary question.
You need goggles. You can't even see
Yeah.
when you're flying that fast. I don't think people realize that. You know, it's like
Depending on how
when
high
you
you go.
land, your hair is all fucked up. Your
Yeah.
clothes is all like wet.
true.
Like, dude, teleport.
Teleport.
It's not even a question. I don't even understand it. But people say flying.
When you teleport, though, you can't teleport with anything on you but your skin.
Terminator rules.
He just threw this in there.
This is reality. Like you can't. Your clothes
So-
don't teleport. You teleport.
Anything that's on your skin. Like I could
It'll just
I could take you with
be
me, just like boom, because like let's
No,
go.
That's not how that works.
Well, that's how I want it to be.
It doesn't. It's not how it works. It's
All
like the
right.
whole thing about flying.
Can we verify the laws of teleportation, Daniel, and
Daniel,
just find out
please?
if your clothes will go with you? I mean, dude, even no, you can't even take a wallet, so you can't buy new clothes.
You can teleport into a bank, but you can't take anything out of it.
I have no
Yeah.
problem. I don't have no problem teleporting naked. I can just buy clothes when I'm there.
That's true.
But with what money? With
yeah.
what money?
You have to call, be like, hey, I'll be there in a
You
few
can't even
seconds,
go into a
naked.
retail store without clothes. No shoes, no clothes, no service.
I'm just gonna find like a plastic bag.
All right, there you go. All right, last question. What's one item you always have in your fridge or freezer?
Oh, dude, my first answer was beer, but aside from that, gochujang.
Oh.
I don't think I've never not had.
Do you dabble with some cooking?
No, I don't like cooking anymore.
No.
What do you mean anymore?
I used to cook a lot when I used to work at these restaurants, and it's not that it's bad. It's just that my lazy ass finds it so rewarding to be like food, But then you're like, make the food. I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, gochujang.
Very cool. So, you have any last?
No.
Okay.
Dave, you want to promote?
Yeah. Let's hear everything
Where
that's
can we
going
find
on.
you? Do you have a website?
Social
Social
media,
media.
handles.
Phone number, address?
Where you normally are drinking on the weeknights if you're looking for a companion.
Yeah.
Let's see, things that I want to promote. No, I mean, this show ends this Saturday, so that's crazy. And then immediate things is making work for some group shows coming up, and then doing shit with the Bulls. That comes out December.
Hell yeah,
And
guys.
then-
Can we elaborate on that at all?
I don't know. I'm
Okay.
just gonna leave
Well,
it at that.
there's a
Yeah.
date, right?
There is a date, but
Can
I
we at
don't
least
know.
say the date?
I think it's December 6th.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop here because I don't know if I can.
Okay. I
Nobody on the Chicago Bulls is listening to
no
this.
one on the
You're right.
But I will say this: December 6th, if you happen to be interested in going to a Chicago Bulls game, and if you get there early enough, you might get a awesome
Stuff.
Thing.
stuff.
Yeah, awesome
So-
thing stuffs.
Yeah, and then
From David Huh.
yeah, aside from that, yeah, just getting ready mostly in winter. I'll be showing in a satellite fair in Miami in December, and then I don't know, it's just like getting back into it, I guess. But if you want to find me, it's not like humble bragging. You can Google me. That's pretty fun. Like it's pretty crazy. You can just type in David Haw, and then it's me.
Yo, can you clarify in Korean, what is the spelling?
So
Here?
here, so it's pronounced Ho one.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But growing up in Georgia, it's kind of hard to make people say huh. So it's easier to just drop the A and it's ha.
Yeah, because I keep
yeah.
hearing you say ha.
It doesn't offend me. It's just I don't think a lot of people are comfortable doing that first. And I'm not, and I'd rather people say it right than try being ethnic. Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? I'm like, don't do that. Don't be like,
Yeah, I know people that like.
do you know what I'm
when
saying? Like they try really hard. I'm
Yeah.
like, that is
when they-
gross.
I know some people.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna say who.
Yeah.
But when they try to attempt saying like Korean food
Yes.
that I've said,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like the pitch goes higher.
Yeah.
The it gets sharper.
And it
like,
becomes one
kimchi
word.
jjigae. I was like, dude, it's just kimchi jjigae.
Yeah, and it's not me like throwing shame at them or anything. It's just
I
I'd
don't know what that
rather.
is.
It's better that people say ha than hio or ho, right?
Yeah.
I much prefer people asking first
Yeah.
because if they can pronounce ho, that's fine. Like ho one, that's fine. But I'm not gonna chastise them because they're like ha.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
happens all the time.
Yeah, man.
You know.
And it's not something I'm angry about or have to fight for. It's just that that's just it.
Yeah.
You know?
So, do we do Instagram?
Oh.
No, internet.
And it's DAVHEO. Not yeah. I think everyone like 'cause-
H-O.
Yeah,
H-O-E.
DAV no E
Yeah.
HEO.
Yeah, yeah.
On Instagram,
Yeah.
amazing talent, amazing human being.
Oh, thanks, man.
Grateful to have his beautiful work displayed in our restaurant, and to have him just in our circle
In our
of
community.
friends and community
Wow.
here.
Thank you for coming
So
to
nice.
Chicago.
So nice.
doing
We're
your
so
thing.
excited about this gallery and the work that you put up. It's amazing. It's incredible. If you can't make it here in time to see the gallery for yourself, visit his website
Or just
learn
watch
about,
this thing.
Or watch this.
Watch this.
Maybe
Yeah.
Dan will get some cool
B-roll on-
shots.
Yeah, man, and this is his Oscar film.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys might get an Oscar for this.
So, anyways, guys, thank you, Dave, for joining us today, man.
Yeah,
we
thanks
really
for having me.
appreciate it. I know he's busy right now, but I want to
live
thank
gallery
Patrick,
going on.
Patrick back there for
Spilled coffee.
letting us take over his space. Hope you guys enjoyed everything, and that's a wrap.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.